Hey good people, Batavia here. So we have our last full garden tour with both spring planted, summer planted, and fall planted crops. So we're gonna go ahead and dig in. I still have plenty of peppers on the vine. All of these will be harvested between today and tomorrow. We're expecting our first frost early. It may come this week. I garden in the US, I'm in Chicago, Illinois, and my garden zone is 6. And my average first frost date now is November the 1st. We're gonna cut down and harvest all of the larger chard leaves. I've had mixed results when it comes to whether or not chard survives the cold temps. So I'm gonna cut most of what I have down and get it into the kitchen, and we'll see how it does. I may do something like, because we're gonna end up with smaller leaves like this, you know, that are left on some of these plants. I may end up doing like, you know, a blanket type cover if we have repeated days of frost. We'll leave things like this kale, which is hardy enough to get through a couple of frosts, even some freezing temps. So we'll leave that be. My Brussels sprouts, I'm not sure what to make of them. I do have some buds. They're super small. I'm going to top these off. I'll show you what I did in the backyard. And it made a big improvement as far as pushing energy into producing bigger sprouts, maturing the sprouts. So we'll do that for all of these, and we'll see what comes of it. Sweet potatoes, I think I'm gonna wait until next weekend to harvest sweet potatoes. I have it in a couple of different spaces. We have the last of the Boxcar Woolly tomato. And so I was testing out how well these mesh bags did. I'm pretty pleased with them. I think it's just a matter of cost and, you know, kind of quantity you would need if you had a bunch of tomato plants. It's probably really not cost effective when you consider that. The last couple of the mango melons, which definitely didn't get to the size that I've seen in previous years, but I'm hoping that there's still some sweet melon inside of there. Okay, so for the backyard, it definitely has a different look from what it looks like most of the season, but this is the time of year. Our herbs here did okay. I've definitely seen some better years of this little corner that I try to plant basically flowers and herbs in. Not crazy about the production this year, but this oregano still looks great. We have stevia that I'm gonna say it's probably still sweet. I'm gonna taste. So before you start eating things from the garden, in general, you want to check both sides of it, right? That's just as fresh and as sweet as if I planted it and this was still early spring. Another gardener commented, it looks like a soccer goal. And it never occurred to me, but that's exactly what it looks like, and I love it. So our soccer goal that's covering these containers, let's open this up. So this is the 1,000 head kale. First time I've grown it. I have this stick here because I meant to stake this. I tried to sow some cilantro here, which, you know, we'll see. Again, running out of days here. I don't know what to make of this kohlrabi, the purple kohlrabi. So this doesn't look large enough to eat. The leaves are a bit eaten up. Maybe some of these, a couple of these will be fit to eat. We'll see. This is one of our Brussels sprouts that we have. It's really been challenged by aphids, which generally speaking are fine. Like, it's not detrimental to most plants, but based on the buds, what they end up doing is eating away the sap of the leaves. And so then you're just losing more and more leaves. So this is basil that has basically been hindered by this colder weather. So while we haven't gotten to freezing as of this recording, we definitely have gotten down to 37 degrees, 38 degrees Fahrenheit. And basil is probably the first thing I notice in my garden that reacts poorly to that. More basil here. You can definitely see it's discolored. Claytonia, but that's super, super cold tolerant. Couple of very small, I think serrano peppers maybe. Some habanadas that we're gonna harvest. This is very small romaine lettuce. I think I'm gonna end up putting this lettuce underneath, basically the container underneath this cover. Because this is actually a floating row cover that's supposed to provide protection down to 28 degrees Fahrenheit. So we'll test that out. This is a mesclun mix. I have it in a couple of spaces. I was hoping for a bit more growth before the really cold weather hit. Let's look at what's still in the cage, baby. Believe it or not, we still have summer veggies in here. So there's still a handful of cherry tomatoes that are growing. That one split. And when I say growing, I mean they're still on the vine. Still sweet. Some of my strawberries are starting to be eaten up. But the idea that I can say I have strawberries in October is pretty cool. This is going to be one of the containers. This one and that one there. We're going to take that into the garage. We're going to put it under lights. We're going to see. I can't imagine why it wouldn't. See if these ripen up. I'll check to see what variety, but they were sold on May the 26th. And they have been shadowed out quite a bit by the squash. I'm putting garlic here as probably one of 5 or 6 places. I'm trying to spread that out a bit more this year. Okay, so again, all peppers are being harvested. We still have plenty on the plant, peppers are probably the hardest thing at this time of the season for me to let go of, because they always still have, especially the smaller producing peppers, they always still have flowers on them. The plants generally still look healthy. They want to keep on growing and giving, but I know we're about 10 degrees, 15 degrees away from the plants just dying. Here is a bunch of jalapenos that we'll harvest. Here is just, again, makeshift cover because it's a brassica in here. I think these are mustards, but mustards also get attacked by the cabbage worm. And so I just have this top here, a little bit of tulle fabric. We'll see how it does. There's a poblano pepper. There is also I don't know if you see it, grasshopper there. So we're gonna navigate around it. So I have a couple of ideas around like a kind of poblano, like using those for salsa. It's such a tasty pepper once you take the skin off, which makes it more palatable. Some carrots in containers. This is like a bok choy, I think. And I've checked and I don't see any new critters. So I think that's older damage. Spinach. And I just use this wire to try to deter digging, from squirrels primarily now this time of year. There's some thyme. The cool thing about this particular container is I didn't plant any of this. This is all returning based on bringing the container indoors at some point and then cutting it all the way back in the spring and bringing it back outside. This is one of the other Brussels sprout plants. Again, we're going to come in and top all of this off. This is still PEX piping and then some old tulle fabric that I have fastened in here. This is a collard green plant, one of the very few I've ever started directly from seed that's actually made it to transplant and grown. Typically, and I mentioned this in a bunch of videos, typically I buy my collards as transplants from stores because I have a hard time starting these plants. This is top bunch kale, which I grew last year, and oh my gosh, was that an overperformer. A bunch of habanadas, which we'll harvest. Purple lady bok choy, and I don't remember, but it's some type of I don't remember. This is the Sugar Red Rush. This is a new space. I don't know if we've seen this space on the channel yet. So this was, remember how in a couple of videos ago I had kind of this container bench that I stole the idea from my buddy Ben. So I moved it and I love it here. And so what I've done is created this netting here, and I only created the netting, which I don't know if this was already there or something is trying to get to it, but I created the netting for the purpose of preventing or deterring your squirrels and other creatures that are visiting my garden now from digging into these containers. And so it's not going to prevent the cabbage worm, the moth, from coming in. You can see there is some damage here. More jalapenos. The only issue with peppers, and it's not even an issue, is you do see some purple coloring. And that's just based on this colder weather. but it doesn't impact the taste as far as I know. It's still absolutely edible. So I think it's actually pretty cool looking too. All right, let's open things up here. Okay, doke. So this space, this is actually, in both cases, these are two different raised beds. This one's about 4 by 4. This one's about 7 by 4. Collards. This is the plant that's split. And so super happy that I didn't pull it because it's still producing. Based on previous years, I know that these collards will survive this frost. However, it just doesn't make sense to leave these larger leaves here. Don't know how long the frost is going to last. Don't know if it's going to be multiple days. Here is an active worm. You can see where it's either this one or multiple have just eaten that entire leaf. I can say after a full season of growing with this netting, which I still love. It's the first year I used it, the black netting. I love how, you can barely see it, so it's not as obvious as kind of the white cloth and fabric that I use. It definitely does not provide the protection that I want for my greens, so I won't use it for brassicas anymore. I'll be sure to use either the row cover, which is what I have here, or my trusty tulle fabric. And so that is something that I wanted to try out this year, and I kind of know the results now. All right, so this is where I topped off the plant, but I'm gonna go ahead and top off similar, which is just like literally cutting the top of the plant off. All of these other plants too. So this is full of aphids, but we're gonna go in and we're going to just pinch off the top of this, snap it. We'll probably come in and give it a cleaner cut. But the intention is to stop the continued upward growth, right? And then focus on these buds getting larger. So I think I'll take a couple of pictures just as a reference point to see how this does. I don't have enough experience with growing Brussels sprouts to know whether or not they will continue to grow. The key is grow. Versus I know for sure, just based on my readings, that they will just be fine when it comes to this frost. But will there actually be growth is the question. And if y'all know that, please let me know. All right, so we have what's left of our carrots from the spring. That's arugula, which I'm pleased with. This was harvest or direct sowed on September the 21st. This is another example of the kale that's just been ravished. I am thinking I will leave these beds covered. This might be, I think these two are collard plants. And so if it is, they're the top bunch collard. So we'll leave those. I actually moved the purple kale that was in the containers to this space because I knew I would be providing some cover for this space. And then we have mach here, transplanted in. We have some radishes. We have a couple of spinach plants. I sowed a whole row of spinach. You can see only a few took. More mach. And then I have some cilantro that I sowed here. Some carrots that I transplanted. Okie doke, so thanks for spending some time with me. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them below. And I'll see you all in the next one.